Ladies and gentlemen, this is WeatherBrains episode 472 for the 9th of February, 2015, the pre-show. This is that great time where you hear a lot of weird sounds.
Me.
Banging on the mics, people singing,
La 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 la.
barnyard noises, dogs, cats, you name it, you'll hear it here. We're going to start the show in about 8 minutes. Thanks for watching and joining us.
Just make it clear that this is not the show.
I don't know. Some people think this. I think some people just watch this and they leave when it starts. So.
Yes, I know.
So, Kevin, you're sick.
Yeah, I've had this about a week, and I finally went to the doctor today, and said he didn't know if it was an allergy. I waited. I must have waited. Gosh, it was at least 45 minutes to an hour, and saw the guy. He was in the room for literally less than 2 minutes.
Mm-hmm. There's a doc in the box.
Yep, he said it was either allergies or he said there's some germ, as he put it, going around here. Gave me one of those steroid packs and sent me on my way.
Yeah, take this pack and go get some rest. Go to bed.
That and some of the worst tasting cough medicine I have ever had in my life.
Wow.
Means it's good for you.
It tasted like fake cherry death soda.
The Tangle tells you
death
it's
Show title.
Yeah. Hey, Rick Smith, congratulations.
Mm-hmm.
Woohoo! For what? Oh, thank
For
you.
your award. Well, we should make a fuss about it on the show, not now.
No, you shouldn't.
We're going to embarrass him.
No.
Yes.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
How
That's our
is
job.
that one? Does they give out one of those a year, or what is it?
The bronze medal from NOAA, they do it once a year.
Wow.
And I was there with a group of distinguished people from offices and a guy that worked on a NOAA ship that saved someone from drowning, and there was all kinds of stuff.
That's kind of a thing
Say
there.
hi, they're gonna love you here. Hey, you guys, you have to say hey to Gwen. This is Gwen Bevel, our anchor.
Hi, Gwen.
Hey, Gwen.
Bill, and
Are you
Jay,
like a news anchor?
and Nate and Rick. And James already pointed out. This is Gwen.
It's very nice to meet y'all. I know he looks
How-
forward to this every Monday night.
No, that's
How
not
do
true.
you how do you put up with Kevin and his crankiness 5 days a week?
Well, I've
5,
only
6,
been here
or
a short
10.
time, so.
Yeah, he's about the farthest thing from cranky I've ever met. So
Oh, God. Well, you don't know him very well. Then.
Led a sheltered life.
you know.
Yeah. Gwen's helping us fix the Kickapoo Airport reporting station, Rick.
You said
If she can do that, she deserves a medal
I did,
herself.
and then he got back to me on Saturday. I missed his call,
Oh.
but I wanted to touch base with
What? He muted. Well, we were listening
Whoa.
into this.
We were talking business there. Had to
we were horning in. All of a sudden, he muted. That means
Look,
there's
this is top secret anchor weatherman stuff. Leave us alone.
Oh, brother. Right. Goodness. All right. So I think we're all here. Could we start this show early? Could this be a record?
No, you can't start early because cable won't be there. You have to wait until
That's true. You know,
9:30.
you're right. Thank goodness. Yeah. No, I am not 100% tonight.
Try this one. Go back.
What is
Well, it's a good
what is
thing
he
I'm
talking
here.
about?
Not reporting temperature. That was the thing that was broken.
Okay.
Like the wind direction and the pressure.
And that when we need him to be muted, he's not muted.
I was just going to call him at home right now.
Oh, well, that's cool.
Yeah.
Oh, thanks.
I'll let you know.
Thanks.
So,
Wait, she knows everybody in town. She's going to get the Kickapoo Airport fixed.
Wow.
You
Great.
keep
If she gets
saying
that fixed, I got a
Kickapoo,
list
and
of some other ones for her.
Okay, good.
Um,
If it's around here, she must know somebody. She's been here a long time.
Sounds
You,
like
you
it.
keep saying Kickapoo and not expecting me to laugh.
No, you can laugh. It's silly.
We're at a Kickapoo Creek in near San Angelo when I was in Texas.
There used to be a lake called Kickapoo. Has a little bit of water in it now, I think.
Yeah, is it a puddle? It's puddle lickapoo?
Pond, a puddle.
Kickapoo puddle?
Yeah.
There's your title, Kickapoo puddle.
Kickapoo Puddle. How do you spell Kickapoo?
Just like it sounds.
Kickapoo?
Yep.
Exactly.
Mhm.
There you go.
That is the tiny little downtown airport for Wichita Falls. Interestingly, we had been getting some erroneous reports from Shepherd Air Force Base, which is general. That's KSPS. But thanks to Rick, I learned it was reporting like sunny when it was cloudy and so on and so forth. And thanks to Rick, I found out that because it's at the Air Force Base, it's only staffed part of the time, and when it's on automation, it doesn't report anything over 12,000 feet. You said, Rick, right?
Mm-hmm. Right.
And so, but there's staff there that are sending out corrections to the sky conditions, because I can see, like on my AeroWeather app, a correction in the string, but for whatever reason, that correction does not make it through NOAA port, I guess, to or maybe it does, but for some reason Weather Central is not processing it, so they don't show the right thing. So I got 2 malfunctioning main weather stations here.
So I think we have a Sue on the air. Well, he just left. I was going to bring in the Sue here, but he just got up and walked out. Yeah.
Apparently, I bored him and he left.
Yeah.
He's polishing his Texas A&M degree there.
What is a Sue? I've heard of those.
A boy named Sue.
Johnny is a great Johnny Cash song.
What do you say when you're calling a pig?
Hey, Jeffrey, can you hear us?
Yes, I can.
Okay.
Wow.
Do you prefer
Sounds good
Jeff
too.
or Jeffrey?
Jeff works great.
Yeah.
Okay, because you're Jeffrey on your Google ID here. All right. Well, good. You sound good. We're ready to go. This is great. I'm just waiting on the cable TV to join us. I have never been waiting to start the show, and we're all here. This is like a first.
Aubrey's not here.
Well, that's right. Aubrey's not here, and Brian is teaching some spotter training, which means I have to do the website again. It needs to be the crappiest show notes ever. But at least the producer is back, so I don't have to edit the show down this week. Boy, last week it was a challenge because the audio was rough.
Yeah.
And,
That was terrible.
you start playing with filters, and I'm thinking, of all nights, I'm the guy that's got to do something with this. So I wound up doing this dynamics processing thing, which I don't think really helped. I mean, but I did listen before and after, and it's worse without it. So, but yeah, we probably need to have a production meeting one night where we just talk lights and mics and cameras and all that kind of good stuff.
Well, this is the only view of this room I'm going to give you, because I'm going to take the camera off. This is carefully produced for television, because as soon as I move the camera, notice you start to see my kid's play set.
No,
Your
you're
kid's play set, sure.
Man.
Yeah, and then the pile of junk and everything else. So.
Wow. What kind of camera is that?
That is it's a Logitech something or other, and it's from work, and I'm borrowing it. And they've got another one that I'm going to borrow that supposedly gives me a better image. So, but this is my computer that we literally inherited from my grandfather a couple months ago, and I'm using it instead of my
looks good.
MacBook.
It looks good.
Looks good. I think mine is called an HD Pro C920 Logitech. It's the one that Leo Laporte, gives out to his guests.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the one I'm using. We're on the air. Ha ha ha.
Alex uses that one, and he recommends that one. But I've made contact with him again on the question engine thing.
Yeah,
I already told you that. I sent you a note on that.
So excited. I was.
Yeah. Go ahead.
I just wanted to get him on this show.
Alex?
Yeah.
He might come. I don't know.
All right, let's get this thing started. Hello to our cable television viewers. We are doing something very rare. We are starting on time. All right, I think we're ready to go here. Let me get the recorders going. Track 1 and track 2. And here we go in 5, 4, 3. I'm hearing myself coming back on somebody's channel. Everybody got headphones in? Okay, let's try it. Hello, hello, hello. No, we're cleaning. Here we go in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. WeatherBrains! Yes, sirree, Bob. WeatherBrains episode number 472 for Monday, February 9th, 2015. It's the weekly show all about weather. We gather around this finely polished digital mahogany table to talk about our favorite subject, and that's weather. Hey, we're glad you're here. First off, let's see, absentees. Aubrey Urbanowitz is out because I can't pronounce your name. She decided not to join. No, where is Aubrey? Do we know? I mean, is she just AWOL?
I think so.
All right, we'll send out the I-team to find out where she is. Brian Peters is out. Brian, of course, is the retired WCM who's with us every week. Brian is doing a spotter training talk tonight. Old WCMs never retire; they just keep on doing spotter talks. So, you know, he's out doing his thing.
That's
but
not encouraging.
we have a real WCM who still does spotter talks. Rick Smith. How many spotter talks do you do a year?
Well, we do less than we used to. If you combine the ones we do online with the live ones, 16, 17, something like that.
And I think it's great that you offer them online. I really do. It gives a lot of people the chance to be trained. Where's the trend here? Are you going to just phase out the in-person sessions completely, or where you go from here?
I don't think so. I mean, the in-person is so important, whether it's doing storm spotter training or some kind of other training. We're going to continue. I mean, it's important to go out into the communities and meet people and see people and develop those relationships. So that'll continue, but I see the trend in spotter training maybe going more online. We've already got courses online, and we did our first webinar 2 weeks ago and had about 400 and something people on there. We had one tonight, and I don't know how many showed up for that, but so yeah, it gives you a lot more flexibility. It lets more people participate, and so it's worked out well for us.
For the office in Norman, Rick, what is the core time frame for spotter training? What times of the year do you train?
We usually start late January and try to get it wrapped up by the 1st of April. We'll leak a little bit into April again this year, but that's the goal.
And do you do anything in the fall?
We try to do something in the fall. We didn't do it this past year. It was just there was too much else going on. But yeah, normally we'll try to do one in the fall and work some winter time reporting and how to measure snow and ice and things like that. But and we're doing some other things too. We're doing some other things in communities this year. A Severe Weather 101 class in some communities where we go and talk to not the same storm spotters every year, but decision makers, emergency managers, school administrators, hospital people. So we're trying to expand and reach a new audience out there all the time.
So who wants to embarrass Rick with this big award?
Well, you didn't introduce it. You didn't introduce him properly. He's not Rick Smith. He is NOAA bronze medal winner. Rick Smith. Congratulations, Rick. No, everybody give Rick a round of applause.
Thank you. I am very honored. Got to go to D.C. last week. That's the main reason I wasn't on last Monday night. Sorry. But yeah, it was a big honor, and appreciate all the kind words. And I'm really fortunate to work in a great office where my boss will let me do crazy things and usually don't get in too much trouble. So
well, how do they? How do they choose for that award? Because it's only given out to one person per year, which makes it even a bigger deal.
Well, it's not one person. They give out multiple ones. They give some to groups. They give like entire offices won bronze medals. There was only a couple of individual ones this go round, but there's a nomination process, and it goes through a nominating a selection committee, and they pick the ones. And a week before that, my boss was up in D.C. getting a gold medal for our office, for the entire office. So there's a gold medal, silver medal, and bronze. So it's a big honor. That was my first time.
Are you guys having to build a new room for these awards over there?
Trophy case.
We've got a lot of blank space on the halls, and I would just as soon not win any more awards, because usually that, winning an award usually means something really bad happens. So be fine with me if we didn't win another one, but I'm proud to work in an office where we have a great team, and there's a lot of deserving people out there, but I was very honored to be there, so I appreciate it.
I'm very happy for you, very proud of you as well, but I'm also sad because this now marks that you are way too good to be on this show anymore.
No. You see, I'm sitting in my daughter's old bedroom with yellow walls. I'm not too good. I don't have the cushy studios and microphones yet, so I'm honored to be on this show. So thanks for having me.
Were you not paying attention, Rick, to when I showed the fact that this is the only part of this room that looks like an office, and the rest of it is my child's playroom?
I've got to do some more staging, hang some of those awards up behind me or something.
Yeah, apparently the awards committee did not know that Rick is part of this program, and that's the reason he had the clear path. Kevin
See,
Shelley,
most of the nominations went in before that happened, so
yeah, there you go.
There you go.
you know, that's my last chance, probably.
Yeah, we've ruined a lot of careers on this show. Speaking of ruining a career, Kevin Shelley is.
Thank you very much.
No, Kevin is he's blooming in this new market. His career is exploding. So. And also, I understand your head is exploding this week. You were slightly ill.
Had to go to the doctor today. He just said he didn't know if it was, changing places. Only 2 hours up the road from Dallas-Fort Worth, but there's a lot of different things in the air, plants and, I don't know, allergens and whatnot. So it's either allergies or a cold, but I went and got my my allotment of drugs to fight that just before dinner this afternoon, so hopefully I will be on the mend. But great market here. People just could not be more welcoming. It's a real nice family here at the television station, and although I'm working on weather problems already, we've got 2 somewhat malfunctioning weather stations. I guess Shepherd Air Force Base isn't malfunctioning. That's probably the one that most people know. SPS is the 3-letter code. But there's an interesting reporting issue about sky conditions that we're talking about. And then all last week I kept getting pings from people, and people would come into the studio and say, hey, like our sports guy came in and say, hey, I just got a note from my brother who's in Michigan. I hope you guys are okay down there, because his weather app was reporting that it was 37 degrees below zero here at the Kickapoo Downtown Airport, which is the main little airstrip for Wichita Falls. And for whatever reason, that thing's been malfunctioning. We're trying to fix that as well.
And we met your news anchor on the pre-show a little earlier. She's a very nice lady.
She is a lovely woman. She works harder than anybody I know. She's always off volunteering for something here or there, and she works through the weekends. Her name is Gwen Bevel. Interestingly, her name is spelled Gwyn. There are no vowels in her name.
Ooh, cool. And by the way, for those that might be new, some of us actually are working while we do WeatherBrains. Kevin is on the night shift at work. I am on the night shift at work. And Kevin has a 9 o'clock Central Time newscast you got to do. So
yep,
you're like weather during the show here.
Well, and let me before I do have to go, let me mention thanks to everybody who bought for the 3rd round of T-shirts. Now it's closed; it was until the 8th, but the 3rd round of T-shirts is over. We sold 20 more, and we're getting a couple of dollars for each shirt or hoodie. There were hoodies as well. You get a couple dollars for each one. We're putting it into a fund that's probably now over $500 that we're going to wait and put somewhere good and important that needs it, like after a weather event or the Red Cross or something like that. But Aubrey Urbanowitz and I are working diligently on the next edition of the T-shirts, which maybe will come out sometime this spring.
Awesome.
Well, don't go now because you can't buy them. Never mind.
Yeah, cool. And again, Kevin's kind of in and out. We've also got Aubrey. You just showed up. We were just talking. So you were AWOL. You're here. Thank goodness.
Sorry, I was actually at work, and I was changing and getting a little comfy. So I just came from work.
That shirt, that hoodie there says something TSU.
ETSU.
ETSU. State University.
Yes, it is. I lived in Johnson City for 7 years.
Isn't that where Kenny Chesney went to school? Am I dreaming?
Yes, that's the one. Yep.
I will lose my Texas card for knowing that, but
Aubrey is. Aubrey works at WHSV in Harrisonburg, Virginia.
Yes.
Aubrey?
It was almost 70 degrees yesterday.
You've been in like some mild weather up there, huh?
It was gorgeous. The weekend was amazing. Even today, it started beautiful. And it was hard to believe that today would turn out to be such a sucky day because it was beautiful. Wow. It was 57 degrees today, and I got to work, and it started clouding up, and it was a little chilly. It was 57. I got in, it was like 50 at like 1:30. And I go to do weather at 5. I'm on the air, and it's 41, and it's misty, foggy, and drizzly, and dreary, and it's 37 and just yucky now.
So
but
you
said sucky. You said sucky, yeah.
Is that a technical term?
It can be, because, I mean, how do you go from 68 degrees yesterday to a beautiful morning and a beautiful first half of the day, and then the rest of the day was just gross? I'm usually the optimist with weather, but man.
It should be an acronym for something.
CAA.
Did I just hear what we're going to put on the next T-shirt? Sucky and WeatherBrains? Is that what it was?
Exactly.
Put Sucky and WeatherBrains together.
We've
I'm going to
also
leave that one alone.
We've also got Dr. John Scala, who is in Lancaster, Pennsylvania. And how cold up there is it going to be this weekend, John?
Oh, man. Oh, even before we get there, Aubrey, we're on the other side of that boundary.
Yeah.
So today I had freezing rain most of the afternoon. It is a skating rink up here.
Oh my God.
And in the last hour, we've gone from moderate ice pellets now to snow. And that's falling on top of the ice. It's a mess.
I went, what did you guys go on Sunday? Because I went 19 for the high.
Oh, yeah, definitely in the teens with single-digit lows. And with the winds on the backside of this?
I can't remember the last time I saw 850 temperatures this cold.
Yeah, this is going to be the coldest air so far this season, no question.
The anomalies were like 40 degrees, minus 40 up there, 40 degrees below average, and that's brutal, man.
Yeah.
I mean, goodness. But you guys are tough. You can handle this. Nate Johnson is in Raleigh, North Carolina. Who can handle anything? Because he's a manly man working in a manly room.
And we get, just don't pay no attention to the play kitchen behind me. We're gonna actually get on that cold air here. This is rough. So we had 71, 72 yesterday. First time since the beginning of December that we did that here in Raleigh.
My heart bleeds for you.
And then we'll hit 50s Wednesday, Thursday, and then a high of 36 on Friday. And by Sunday, we're talking about a high of 24. That's good and cold, and there's no snow with it, so that makes a lot of people around here very sad.
Yeah, we have the same issue here in the Deep South. Cold but no snow. Bill Murray is chewing potato chips. Bill, what are you munching on?
No, I'm not munching on anything, although I do have some delicious toasted coconut chips that I'll be trying later.
Where are you? That is a new room.
This is actually my house in Vestavia Hills, Alabama. So
this everybody's in it, like everybody but Dr. John and James are like in different rooms or relatively new places. Rick's in his daughter's room, and you're in, I don't know, what is that, the guest room or something? What's going on?
It's the dog house.
The dog house. That's what I was.
Yeah, I actually spent all of the weekend, with my wife painting the basement and getting my weather office ready. So by next week, I'll be coming to you live from my new weather office. So I'm excited about that.
Hey, Bill, bring in our guest before he hangs up on us. He's been sitting through 50.
Yeah, I was going to say this is the longest introductions we've ever done.
I don't know this show's gone right down the tube. So, Bill, you bring us back on track here.
Yeah, James, tonight's guest WeatherBrain is the Science and Operations Officer at the National Weather Service in Upton, New York, which serves New York City. He's the chair of the NWA's Education Committee. He's also an assistant professor at Suffolk Community College and a lecturer at Stony Brook University. Welcome, Jeff Tung, to the show. Jeff, welcome.
Well, thanks, Bill. Glad to be here.
Well, I'm glad you hung out through the long introductions there, Jeff. We've got a very august panel tonight, and it's good to have you on the show. And, of course, we wanted to have you on because you were right there in the middle of everything for all of the other side of the snow events of the past few weeks, starting with the big blizzard. So we wanted to get your sort of analysis of that event, and then eventually lead into a discussion of how the numerical models worked, and then talk about how we can communicate uncertainty better. So why don't you sort of set the stage for us for that January 27th event and how it unfolded in your CWA?
Yeah, Bill, the storm classified as a blizzard here on Long Island produced some tremendous amount of snow, 24 to 30 inches of snow across Long Island. And the big story came in New York City, where New York City only received about a foot of snow. So the word blizzard, only a foot, yeah. But the expectation was for quite a bit more. We were looking at a blizzard, and people were, equating blizzard to mega snowstorm, where, of course, blizzard has nothing to do with the amount of snow that's actually expected to fall. So in New York City, Central Park measured about 9.8 inches, but just 50 miles to the east, full-fledged blizzard. I was working at the forecast office out at Upton, and we were out cleaning off our NOAA port dish in a full-fledged blizzard of 40-mile-an-hour winds and sideways falling snow. So, and of course, our friends up in Boston, still receiving a tremendous amount of snow, and more to come here on Thursday night.
So talk about how 50 miles made such a huge difference in this event, Jeff.
Well, it's a population, Bill. We have about 8 million people living in New York City. The governor had shut down travel. The city was basically closed down. And the expectation was that this was going to be a crippling, once-in-a-lifetime type blizzard. So that didn't quite happen. We ended up with about a foot of snow. The roads were all closed down, and were able to be cleared up pretty quick. So on that side of the coin, things worked pretty good.
And so talk meteorologically about how the event unfolded, Jeff, and why that 50 miles was important.
Yeah, well, what we were looking at was quite a bit of precipitation on the western edge of the storm, and a lot of the numerical weather prediction models were suggesting that we'd have tremendous amounts of precipitation. Fortunately or unfortunately, depending on how you want to look at it, and I think it was fortunate that we didn't get that type of snow. What's amazing was it was just 2 years ago tonight that if you've looked at the cover of BAMS that just came out, that was one of the mega snowstorms to hit Long Island with 30 inches of snow. And again, that was a similar type of storm in the fact that there was a very tight gradient of the heavy snow between the highly populated areas of New York City and east of Long Island.
So, Jeff, there's been a lot of debate about the forecasts and how they worked. You're right there in the office that was most affected, arguably. So talk about how the forecast worked and sort of what changes and things your office has talked about in retrospect to what happened.
Well, we've been working for several years to try to communicate uncertainty in the forecast rather than go to these specific numbers. People hear, specific numbers in terms of snowfall, and they tend to gravitate and sometimes exaggerate those numbers. So you'll hear things like 2 feet, and somebody else will say, "Oh, I heard 3 feet," and we don't even know where those numbers even come from. So what we're doing is we're trying to look at doing 3 different graphics. One is the most likely snowfall, what we'd expect most likely to occur, but also give some goalposts. What's the minimum that we would expect to occur, and then what would the maximum be? So that looks familiar from 2 years ago.
Yeah, oops, I took it away. Sorry, Jeff. Let me put that back up again. Yeah, as you were talking, Jeff, I've adopted a philosophy in forecasting when it comes to snow where I say, expect this amount, but be prepared for this amount. And I like your analogy of goalposts. I think that's right on the money.
Right, and John, sometimes those goalposts are really wide. It's hard to accept the fact that you could end up between 2 inches and 2 feet, and a lot of people don't want to hear that, and they think we can do better. But when you're on the edge of the precipitation shield, it doesn't take much to end up with a totally different storm.
Well, my sister, if I can jump in for a moment, my sister lives in Melville in Long Island, and when I was talking to her before the storm, she said, honestly, I don't know what to believe because there's so many, when you're talking about snow totals, she said there's so many different numbers being thrown out there. She said, I just don't even know what to expect.
Yeah, that became a problem that people were seeing all types of numbers, and people are expecting to have, a specific answer, and then they adjust from there. But what we're trying to do is give these goalposts of we expect at least this much and possibly as much as a higher number. But it's something new and looking at uncertainty. And the way we're getting that is actually looking at ensemble systems. NCEP runs an ensemble, of course, and the European Center runs an ensemble. And what we're doing is we're collecting data from 57 different members at NCEP and putting that into an expectation from highest to lowest, and our hope is that most of the time we'll be within the goalposts. And the question is, how do we narrow those goalposts? So as you get closer to the event, you would expect your goalposts to start to come in, and that's what sometimes that may not be till the event's actually started.
So Jeff, talk. I'm sorry,
No,
Dan,
go ahead. Go ahead.
Jeff, talk for a second about how these goalposts. What do you communicate this to the public via? How do you tell them? What would an example be of how you might use that?
Okay, what we're doing is we're using graphics, and primarily with our emergency management people, so they can be prepared. We want to be prepared to have them know what the worst case could be, and to know what the most likely case can be, so they can plan accordingly. But it's all being done with graphics, and then we have some text information that gives probabilistic data in terms of what's the probability of having some criteria, say 6 inches, or the probability of a foot of snow. And all these graphics are being run up and down the Northeast corridor from Washington up to Boston.
Hey, Jeff, can I jump in? This is Kevin in Wichita Falls. I'm interested in that graphic presentation because you guys, all the Weather Service offices, are doing a great job with those on their websites. Do you have any kind of a feel for what percentage of the overall web audience is seeing those as opposed to they've bookmarked, the forecast page from the grids or whatever?
Right. It's starting to increase. We just started it this year. The Sterling office, Washington, D.C. office, that was doing this last year. There have been other attempts throughout the Weather Service. I know the Boston office had been looking at doing this as well. But we're trying to give people some idea of how uncertain the forecast is. And this is really new for the Weather Service to add all this information. And this is primarily for the high-end users, for those emergency managers, road crews, what to plan for, what could happen, where could we go wrong, where could be right.
So do you have a feel for what percentage of the public is seeing those graphics, or are they really just geared for the pros?
Well, I would say the percentage is pretty small right now.
Right.
Most of the users are through the commercial media looking at information, and I haven't seen that presented on in commercial media yet. Mm-hmm. And of course, the problem is that it would confuse people.
Yeah.
Well, I know for Sterling, just compared to last year when we were doing this page, it's harder to find this winter weather page this year than it was last year. It was moved, and it's very difficult to find, actually. I have to Google it.
Yeah, that's the problem with a lot of Weather Service pages. We have so much information that we can't find our own information.
So there's been a lot of conversation about probabilistic forecasting, and one of the critiques of offering the range or probabilities, one of the critiques of that is, decision makers, emergency managers, mayors, that sort of thing, are really interested in, what do I need to plan for? What's the number? And I've heard it described as, and this may be an oversimplification, but, emergency managers don't want to hear about probabilities. They don't want to know. They just, tell me what it's going to do. Give me your best guess, and that's what I'm going to plan for. Other folks say that the probabilistic forecast is helpful because it fills in the picture, that sort of thing. What are your thoughts on that, and what do you find that your partners in emergency management and in local government and even in industry that use your forecasts, what do you find that they want from a winter forecast?
Well, I think the situation in the past has been that we give them a number and they apply uncertainty to it. What we're trying to do now is give them some bounds. What could possibly happen? What's the worst case scenario and what's the best case scenario? So they can plan and do their preparation based on that. So when you close down schools and you close down the city of New York, that's a big decision that's made. So they're planning, how do you judge that? How do you weigh that? What's the cost and what's the benefit? So those are difficult decisions that people have to make that are not meteorologists. And we can provide them with more information by showing them the goalposts, and they can see how those goalposts are changing with time. For example, we can go back to some of the tropical information. We could look at Sandy, and I remember we started to convey that the threat of storm surge continued to increase as the storm approached, and that by the time it was 2 days away, we were using the term deadly storm surge.
Do you find that the partners that you work with are using that information in a way that is consistent with your notion of correct? Sort of a little question, but it's worded that way, to get everybody out of trouble.
Yeah. There's, people tend to gravitate to the worst case scenario. They look at the big numbers and they fixate on those. When the term of 2 feet of snow was being used, that's what they tended to gravitate to. So there's still a lot of education and a lot of communication work that has to be done.
Jeff, I want to go back to the storm from 2 years ago, because I think this illustrates one of the points you were talking about. This is the total snowfall map from New England, and we were talking about with the storm last month having a very sharp western gradient. Well, you can see the same thing here from western Connecticut over towards the Hudson River Valley. That's 24 inches down to 6.
Right.
So once again, we're dealing with the west side of these significant nor'easters that tend to have very sharp gradients. To me, that's the challenge. How do you convey that information to emergency managers and the folks that have to pre-position resources ahead of a storm like this?
Right, and that's what these graphics are trying to do. We're trying to show that there's a lot of uncertainty, even up to the time the snow's already begun. You could have looked at, I think of one model I saw on the Monday, just before the storm was actually underway. And it was one of the high-resolution fire weather nests, 1.3 kilometer runs, and it was producing 2 to 3 inches of liquid equivalent over New York City. So, and that's just an 18-hour forecast.
Right.
So, and there's so much information, so many models. You hear a lot of people talk about, well, the European versus the GFS, but when you look at the European, that's run with 50 ensemble members twice a day, so that's 102 model runs. And then the GFS is run with 20 ensemble members 4 times a day. You add that up, that's 84 different model runs. So there's a lot of data out there.
It suddenly got quiet.
Overwhelmed with model
Overwhelmed
data.
with data.
So talk about some of the challenges of using that ensemble data and how you're dealing with it, Jeff.
Yeah, one of the things that the Weather Service has done is fund some collaborative research work. We're doing some work with the Stony Brook University, and what we've been doing is look at ways of visualizing the data so that we can communicate that better to the non-experts. So we've looked at new ways of visualizing, for example, the SHREF, the Short Range Ensemble Forecast System. We can look at that and look at probabilities of how much precipitation is coming out of various members. I'm sure you're all familiar with the SHREF plumes that are produced. You can break those down and look at different types of which core is providing different answers. For example, here with this Arctic push that came down out of New England, we were looking at temperatures forecast for today here in New York ranging from the mid-20s to the mid-40s. We quickly realized that the ARW core was handling the cold air better and could gravitate to that, and we forecasted below Moss, below everything, and had winter weather advisories up for the freezing precipitation that took place earlier this morning. So you can see these things. We can start to look at ensembles, but the visualization still got a long ways to go because there's a tremendous amount of data. And then we have to work with everyone in the community on how we're going to communicate that information to the general public.
Do we have a sense of how reliable, to use the technical definition of that when thinking about probabilities, the SREF plumes and other ensemble techniques are? I mean, we think of a probability precipitation forecast, we score that, look at reliability diagrams and that sort of thing. Do we have a sense that we see that, is there any testing at all or reliability calculations done on the SREF or the NAIFs or the GFS ensembles so that we have some confidence in those numbers that are coming out?
Yeah, the key thing is to hope that the reality is somewhere in between those goalposts. And the hardest thing to do as a forecaster is how do you look at one system versus another system? For example, we were just talking about the SHREF, and how do you decide whether the NMMB or the NMM or the ARW core is better? That's a lot of difficulty in looking at a lot of data and having the science behind it to pick it out. So one thing we're doing at Stony Brook, which is kind of unique, is we've looked at ensemble systems and we're trying to understand where is the uncertainty coming from. So for example, if you have a storm that's going up the East Coast, what we're doing is we're looking at that and trying to figure out where that uncertainty is coming from in the ensemble system. So we can go back to the beginning and see where the initial conditions may be causing that uncertainty. And it's usually, you know, upstream, but sometimes it's downstream.
Jeff, there was a great experiment that was done a few years ago in the Pacific, and I don't know if it was, I don't remember if it was called PacJet or another name,
right.
But they were doing just that. They were dropping sondes upstream and then looking at the resultant forecasts if those sondes were used or not used. It's the same thing you're talking about.
Right, and we can start to target the problems. We can find out is the energy over the Pacific causing the problem, or is it energy coming in from the Arctic? That's what we're trying to look at and try to understand where the uncertainty comes from, so that we can judge and hopefully make a better communication of the uncertainty. But that's one of the forecast challenges we always have is we see storms that develop and forecasters don't really understand, you know, what's causing uncertainty. Why does one model develop it faster than the other?
Yeah, the 24 to 36 hour SREF, the short range ensemble forecast for LaGuardia from the Sunday before the big storm in January had a range of snowfall from 7 to 35 inches. Same model, just different initial conditions for the same location.
Right.
To me, that's extreme uncertainty.
Right, right. So how do we narrow that as we get closer to these events? And as I was telling you, an 18-hour forecast had 2 to 3 inches of liquid over New York City during that storm. So there's, even in the near term, we think we get close to the forecast, or even during the event, we think we have a better handle on things, and there still can be tremendous amounts of uncertainty.
But to me, here's an opportunity to educate the media, to take a look at a case like this and describe the amount of uncertainty that's even in the short term, and say, you wonder why these forecasts can't be nailed exactly, even though it wasn't a miss for New York. It really wasn't. But the gradient that was in place is probably not well understood by the Tuesday morning quarterbacks.
Right, and there's a lot of expectation for the meteorologists to be perfect, and when we're talking about a big storm coming, that sort of gets blown out of proportion, and then when it doesn't turn out to be the worst ever, you know, people are saying, "Well, gee, you really missed it," when you still had a foot of snow.
Is there any hope? You mentioned that your customers and clients and partners tend to gravitate toward that worst case scenario, though. I mean, is there any hope? Does it? You know, I mean, we know that people are going to gravitate. I mean, that lines up with some of the communication research that's been done. And so if we have a forecast early on and then we see the gradient shifting and we say, you know, the earlier totals are overdone and we need to back those off even before decisions are made, or do we even have any hope of getting folks to take the new forecast and forget the old?
Well, I think when we're looking at emergency managers and people that are decision makers and high-end users, as they see the uncertainty narrow down, they can tailor their approach. But with this storm, I mean, we closed down roads in New York City for 8 million people, closed schools for over 1 million students, brought the biggest city in the nation to a standstill. And fortunately, and when we look at that, there was nobody on the roads, and all those roads were cleared up the next morning, and everything came right back to life. So if we'd had the 2 feet of snow over New York City and they hadn't closed things down, it would have been back to what happened 2 years ago, where we lost a major artery in New York for about 3 days because it was filled with cars and they had to use you know, backhoes and things to get the cars off of the roads.
Hey, Jeff, do we know in your market how people are getting weather information? What's their primary source prior to a storm like this? Is it you know, an app? Is it television? Is it the Weather Service websites? What's the primary source in your opinion?
Well, the primary source is coming from the television, but it's the wording that is used. The National Weather Service issues a blizzard warning, and when people hear blizzard, they think 3 feet of snow. when a blizzard can produce 2 or 3 inches as long as it's strong enough wind and reduced visibility. So maybe we need to rethink when we're using the word blizzard, how we communicate that, because people keyed in on that word blizzard thinking that there was going to be a paralyzing 3 to 4 feet of snow.
And I know it's impossible for you to say probably, but how would you rank the media in New York City, television media, in communicating this thing? Give them a grade.
Well, I mean, it became big news, and it was partially because the National Weather Service had issued a blizzard warning for New York City, and that became the #1 news story in the tri-state region. So everybody was going wall to wall with the blizzard warning, the storm, eye on the storm, 24-hour coverage, and it became its own little animal.
Do you think there was too much hyperbole, or was the information good?
Well, in general, it was good, but we tend to hype things up. And when I say we, I mean the weather community, and it just seemed to get its own life going with itself that it was becoming the worst possible storm ever.
Yeah. And then there was a real tendency to refrain from backing off on that large forecast. It seems like once we went down that road, it was awfully hard to backpedal.
Right.
And also, how does the Weather Service chat work there? Are the broadcasters communicating with the Weather Service via NWS chat effectively?
Most of the broadcasters in the New York market are using private sector support. And
I think Jeff just hung up on us. I asked the wrong question.
Yeah, that was time to go. Somebody knew when to leave.
Good job, James, chasing off our guests.
So that was what he just said, though. It sounds
very important,
like, right? I didn't know this. So apparently, most of the television outlets in New York are using AccuWeather. Is that wow? I didn't know that.
Wow, I had no idea. That's interesting.
Well, I was wondering if their forecasts were similar, or if a lot of them varied in that area.
Yes, that's what I want to know, because again, I think, and look, I y'all know me, I'm a cowboy. I'm a competitive guy. I like to win. You want to be the hero. You want to be the one meteorologist in the market that got it right. Everybody else got it wrong, and accordingly, there's some natural desire to go rogue. But in my old age, I guess I'm mellowing, I think the right approach is to be more coordinated with the Weather Service, with the private sector firms, with the television, with the emergency managers, so we're all communicating the same message. We're not going to communicate it in the same way. That's never going to happen. That's the reason there's all these choices. But I just have an idea that I think that's a better way of doing it. And I just wondered if all of the local stations in New York were saying the same thing, or were they all telling people something different, which can lead to mass confusion. But I guess we'll never know because Jeff hung up on us.
Oh, he's back now.
He's back.
Have a chance to ask you more directly. I think an analog to this may be what happened a few years ago with hurricane forecasts. You don't have a lot of television station meteorologists, myself included. You don't have us going off the reservation and saying, well, the Hurricane Center says Sandy's going to hit New York, but I think it's going to make a hard left and it's going to slam right into Hatteras. You don't have that. Little tweaks here and there. You may have some folks say, well, the official track is this, and they may hedge it a little bit, but you don't have the complete, this is and you had that before Katrina. You had folks doing that sort of thing, and you don't see that anymore. And I wonder if there's an analog to doing that with winter weather, and if there is, I'm not sure what it is. And like you said, James, there's that pressure for television stations to, and here's the magic consultant word, differentiate from other television stations, and you can't differentiate yourself if you all have the same forecast. You're not giving people a reason to watch your guy or gal versus the other guy or gal's guy or gal, as it were.
Hey, Jeff, you hung up on us, and he felt bad. He decided to come back. No, you said something very interesting to me that I didn't know. You were saying in New York City, most of the television stations are using private sector firms like AccuWeather. Is that true?
AccuWeather, WSI.
So, and I was asking
Now,
about the National Weather Service.
Are they using them for the forecast or just for the graphics? Because we all use somebody for graphics, but to my knowledge, AccuWeather is the only company that's actually producing forecasts with the intention of their being used on television stations in that way.
Yeah, I'm familiar with the NBC affiliate, and they have access. There's one chief meteorologist, and they get all their graphics. And as far as I know, the forecast graphics are coming from WSI.
Interesting.
But
I could be wrong here.
But are, again, back to the chat session, so you're saying that they don't participate in National Weather Service chat, because in my market down here, it's crucial. Everybody's there. And it's a very, very, very useful way of coordinating a unified message. So
Right.
Do they participate up there?
Yeah, right. Most of our people up here are emergency management folks that are in our chat rooms.
Okay.
Well, that just sucks.
Wow. Yeah.
Need to fix that.
Yeah.
They've all been invited, I can tell you that.
Wow. They're missing out. They're missing out.
I agree.
We've
Well,
said
This is Rick and Norman. Is there?
3 times. Go ahead, Rick.
I'm just wondering, is there? The Weather Service has this what some people think is a new thing, this integrated warning team, integrated weather team. I'm assuming the forecast offices up there, yours included. I mean, do you have meetings like that with the media, or how is is there? I'm assuming there's a relationship there. It's just that they're using different data. How does do you have those meetings with them, and how does that work?
Right. Well, there's certainly outreach to the city. First of all, I should say that the forecast office in New York is removed by about 65 miles from New York City, so it's about an hour and a half to 2-hour trip each way to get in to see someone. That works both ways, from the media side and the forecast office side. But there's certainly a good relationship between the media and the forecast office. And during this storm, my observation was that the media was following very close to what the Weather Service was producing, and there was very little differences between the snow amounts.
So there was basically then, in this case, a fairly unified message. You didn't have any rogue people that were just going off on their own.
No, I mean the amounts that were forecast from the Weather Service and forecast which was relayed by the media were very similar to a very large storm with a lot of snow of 2 feet or more. But we got a foot.
But a foot, that's not, talk about if it would have gone the other way, if you would have called for 3 to 5 inches and you got 18 in the New York City area.
Yeah, that would have been a big problem, and if people hadn't reacted to it. And we have to go back to that storm that happened 2 years ago. That storm produced a tremendous amount of snowfall, but it was a heavy, wet snow. We ended up with 2 to 3 feet of snow across Long Island and Connecticut, but the water content was about 5 inches of liquid equivalent. Wow. So that was heavy, wet snow, and the heavy equipment to move that wasn't available. So we had roads that were closed for days. Basically, Long Island and Connecticut were shut down for 2 to 3 days due to the fact that they couldn't clear the arteries of the snow because of the cars that were stuck out there. So this time,
John, is that graphic the event that Jeff's talking about?
Yeah, it is. It is, James.
Okay.
Yeah.
By the way, before we get back, I've gotten a little word from an informant who shall remain nameless, who says that when they worked at one of the stations in New York City, they actually did conference calls with forecasters at one of the major companies, and they had a chance to pick their brains on the forecast, but they considered the forecast from that company as a guide in making what they consider to be their own forecast. So interesting insight, at least from one of the stations there in New York.
That whole thing is funny to me. I mean, they pay me money to come in here and look at raw data and produce a public weather forecast that is beneficial for our viewers. That's the reason I'm paid. I mean, if I had AccuWeather come in and doing that, I mean, I'm sure not some good-looking guy. They don't have me up there for good looks. I mean, it's like, what am I here for?
At the same time, though, in their defense, I don't think anybody would turn down the opportunity to pick the brain of another forecaster who's been looking at the same kind of data as Elliot Abrams up at, I think it's Abrams or maybe Joel Myers at AccuWeather is fond of saying, I think it was Myers actually, the best forecast isn't going to beat all of the forecasters in the sense that you're going to be better off picking out, going with sort of the bulk of all the forecasters as opposed to trying to go rogue and pick one number out of their own. So, I wouldn't turn down the opportunity to discuss it, especially a complex forecast with another forecaster, just knowing that, it's my face on TV, and if I don't buy the numbers or if I don't buy the explanation, I'm not going with it.
Yeah, good point.
Mm-hmm.
Well, one thing I want to interject here is there's a lot of communication that takes place throughout the National Weather Service. And it's not communication just between the surrounding forecast offices, but there's communication with our national centers. And I know on this storm there was a lot of communication with NCEP's winter weather desk, discussion of the amount of snow and interactions between them, our surrounding forecasts. So there's a lot of collaboration ensuring that we have a nice, consistent, and hopefully the most accurate possible forecast. And I think I've seen that from our local media. Using our information more religiously and following what the Weather Service is providing.
I think it would be really interesting, and I'm hoping there have been some discussion that this might turn into a talk or a panel discussion at the upcoming Conference on Weather Warnings and Communication to be held in Raleigh, North Carolina, June 10th through 12th, 2015. Abstract deadline is Friday.
Everybody take a drink, yeah.
Yeah, drink. But I'd like to. There had been some discussion about this maybe being a discussion or something, and I think it'd be fascinating to see the kinds of communication that take place just within the Weather Service, and like you said, not just within offices, but between offices and national centers, and in some cases, i.e. Sandy, or e.g. Sandy, between national centers. I mean, you have the Hurricane Center and the Weather Prediction Center having to communicate, that sort of thing. You throw in the river forecast centers and stuff like that. I think that would be really enlightening, for folks to get a handle of, but also to see where the sort of politics lie, because if you're an intern or a journeyman forecaster in a small office, you're in your first or second bid, and somebody in SPC says, I think this is worth a watch, and you say no, it's not, and who are you going to go with? It's interesting political conversations that we can't deny exist because they exist everywhere.
Hey, Jeff, before like a really big event, do you ever hear from the top dogs at NOAA? Like, does Mussolini give you a call?
Speaking of politics.
Oh, he won't call before, and hopefully he's not going to call us afterwards. But no, there's certain reliance on a lot of our folks down at NCEP that have access to like the European ensembles. So we rely on them during an event. There's constant communication, whether it's chat or an actual conference call that takes place. And what we're trying to ensure is that we communicate one weather service forecast, so we don't have those boundaries that existed years ago. And we're really working hard to eliminate those.
And there's another piece to this information puzzle now that wasn't there years ago. And I think all the regions have a ROC or Regional Operations Center now. This is another part of that. They're not a national center, but they're like ours is in Fort Worth, and they're looking at coordination issues and consistency issues. So you talked about if Louis is calling. Well, Louis is watching, and Louis is in contact with the National Operations Center in the D.C. area, who is in contact with those regional operations centers. And so there's a whole other layer there that is relatively new in the Weather Service, and I certainly they'd be really involved in an event like this.
I've asked this question before of Rick, and I'll ask you this, Jeff. Do you have enough people in that office to handle all of these jobs? You've got to have people, producing forecasts, products, services, warnings, advisories, working social media. Do you have enough people?
The answer, of course, is no. You never have enough people.
Exactly.
So.
That's the right answer. Yeah.
But we need to prioritize, and we do that pretty well. When we look at our forecast area, we have about 18 million people in it, and we have a core of 13 meteorologists working those 18 million people. So there's a lot of stress and there's a lot of demands on the forecasters. And what we did during this storm was actually to embed a meteorologist in the New York City Emergency Management Office so they could help communicate the information directly to the people that are making the decisions, including the mayor of New York City. And then we go to when we go to the state level, what we do is we embed people. In New York State, it's up at Albany. The Albany EOC has a meteorologist embedded there from the Albany Forecast Office. So the Weather Service is reaching out to those key decision makers so that they can talk face to face.
And you have a direct pipeline to the people. Kevin, you wrote a piece in your blog about this. Digital meteorologist, and I love to hearing different Weather Service offices talking about your social media efforts. How do you staff the social media desk, and what's your general idea of how it should be done?
Well, in New York, we have Facebook. We access Twitter, and we're very active in sending out informations and graphics, and people have been gravitating to that, of course, back to the web. So we're doing everything possible to get the information out.
Are you guys participating? I'm sorry, Jen, we're in the middle of the show here. I couldn't jump in, but I know Rick's office has something on their homepage pointing to the new widget. It's not an app, but it's a mobile-friendly version of the website. And boy, it really looks good. It's nice and clean. It's got no ads to annoy people. I'm intrigued by the idea that you don't have to worry about an app per se, and does it work on Android or iOS, but the suggestion on Rick's page is that you bookmark that on the desktop of your phone, and I'm curious as to how many people know how to do that versus downloading an app. And I know this is experimental, and you guys are going to continue to grow. And I'm going to have to mute again because we're in the middle of a show.
We're being quiet, Kevin, so nobody will be bothered in the studio there.
Yeah, what Kevin's talking about, that's actually that's going to be my pick of the week, and that's a relatively new. Well, it's not new. It's been out there a while, but lots of people don't know it out there, and it's it's the closest thing you're ever going to get to a Weather Service app, I think. So we'll talk about that later.
But again, to me, it's intriguing in that really and truly, you guys can go straight to the public, with social media, and television will always have a purpose, during big events. But it seems like every office has kind of a different strategy. I would imagine if we went to Rick's office in Norman, a little different from your office, Jeff. But I think that's natural because your needs are different and your products and services are different. The weather's different.
Yeah, I agree. We exploit and try to get information out any way we can. We certainly don't have a large no-weather radio audience in New York. It's pretty small, I would think. But we're working as technology evolves to get the information out the best we can.
You don't have a lot of severe weather there, but in the event of a tornado warning for one of the boroughs in New York City, what's the main way of reaching people? It seems like TV stations don't really go wall to wall. I guess they might. And you don't have deep weather radio penetration. How do you reach people?
Well, I think a WEA will go off.
Wireless emergency alert.
Yeah. Yep. That'll go off.
You and Rick know how this sausage is made. We don't know. You guys need to tell us because we don't know.
Well, you know what's interesting is I've been on the case with issuing a tornado warning for Manhattan. During the day, you have 3 million people in Manhattan, and you have a F0 or maybe an F1 at worst tornado. Do you issue the tornado warning? Are you going to cause more problems by people being their WEA going off on their cell phones? Those are some of the things that New York City meteorologists have to think about. So you better be very sure that you're going to issue a tornado warning for New York City.
Has there been a case study? Has there been a case study where you had very strong evidence there was a small tornado and you did not issue a warning based on the panic potential?
You know what it's you got to be confident. You know, when we look at our false alarm rates for tornadoes, we're up in the 75% layer. When our forecasters look and they're going to issue a tornado warning for Manhattan, they better have a really good couplet on the radar.
And if it's like our office, it'll be multiple people, not really, but multiple people turning a key, lots of collaboration, and as an office discussing, we sure we want to do this, get more than one set of eyes on the radar and all that kind of thing. So it's,
let me go back to the original question. If you do pull the trigger, what is the primary way that people know there's a tornado warning? If weather radio penetration is small, and you say WEA, is that the primary way? Smartphone apps, smartphones?
Well, you got WEA, and you have crawls through emergency alert services. So EAS will go off. So all the communications from the media and WEA. That's how they'll get it.
Cool. That's WEA is something I just don't think about here. We pushed apps, and Bill Murray, you've got an app called MyWarn. Is WEA a competitor to you?
Well, in some respect it might be, James, but it is not as specific from a Polygon standpoint as what our app is. It's designed to only alert you if you're physically in the Polygon itself.
I thought WEA did that, so WEA doesn't do that.
Not necessarily by depending on the cell towers and things like that. It's not quite that precise. And it seems to me that it's getting better, but there's been some times that it's been inconsistent in its initial approaches. I think it'll get better with time, and of course there's a place for that, but I think there's also a place for, and an increasing place for, third-party companies, the private industry, to take what the Weather Service is doing and put it out there in the field in useful format, sort of like what we're doing.
Okay, cool. Well, again, mine has gone off for Amber Alerts, and it scares the pee out of you. I mean, when that thing goes off, and look, if there's bad weather, you expect it to go off, but on a clear, calm night, whoa, 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 and it's an Amber Alert. And again, I choose to receive all of them, and you can opt out, but so it goes off for flash flood warnings and tornado warnings. Those are the two weather warnings, right? Rick, you're a WEA knowledgeable man.
Yes, they used to go off for ice storms and blizzards, but I think it's the tornado and flash flood.
And it seems to be timely.
And dust storm.
Sorry, Rick, and what?
And dust storm warnings too.
Really?
Oh,
wow. Yeah, I guess that's important.
Because one of the main audiences the WEA is trying to reach is motorists and multi-car pileups out in the desert Southwest, and so I can kind of see that.
Yeah.
We'll try and get. We've had some suggestions on some WEA experts that might explain more about how that works. But as I look at the clock here, we are 1 hour into this, so we're going to take a quick time out. We're going to have Brian Peters with Professor 101. We have Tony Rice in the Astronomy Report. We'll have the Weather Roundup, the Picks of the Week, Nate's News, the email inbox, and much more as WeatherBrains rolls along.
WeatherBrains 101 with Professor Peters.
Meteorologists use a lot of terms that sometimes require explanation. One of those terms you hear frequently is upper air. So just exactly what do we mean by upper air? We experience weather at ground level, but this weather is the end result of what takes place over our heads. So to determine a forecast and the impacts of weather, we need to know the weather patterns in the air above our heads, the upper air, before looking at the surface weather. The term upper air refers to the Earth's atmosphere above about 5,000 feet or 1,500 meters. It is the result of the upper air patterns as to where we get our wet or dry weather, wind or calm, hot or cold conditions at the Earth's surface where we reside. In previous episodes of 101, we've described the job of the radiosonde. It is the data from this instrumentation that provides meteorologists with a picture of the state of the atmosphere for a particular time at varying levels in the atmosphere. The lines on these upper air charts represent the locations of various higher and lower pressure regions in the upper atmosphere. Upper air charts can look rather complicated to the untrained eye, but it is these maps that become the meat and potatoes for the meteorologists. All weather forecasts stem from our understanding of the upper air data with the location of weather patterns like ridges, troughs, upper air disturbances, short waves, and upper lows, and how these patterns are moving and evolving. Powerful computers solving mathematical equations can describe the changing weather patterns, providing meteorologists with maps at various pressure levels into the future that we interpret to arrive at a forecast. If you have a question about the weather, drop an email to question@weatherbrains.com.
Looking beyond the atmosphere, I'm Tony Rice with your Astronomy Outlook for the week of February 9th. Sunday's planned launch of NOAA's Deep Space Climate Observatory, or DSCOVR, was postponed due to range issues. These problems will be resolved, and soon DSCOVR will be speeding towards Lagrange Point 1, about 932,000 miles from Earth. This point offers neutral gravity between Earth and the Sun, and 50 to 60 minutes warning time before coronal mass ejections and other solar events can reach Earth. DSCOVR will help provide more timely and accurate warnings of harmful space weather, including solar flares and storms, which could interfere with Earth's electromagnetic field. DSCOVR focuses its monitoring on solar winds, the stream of charged particles from the Sun. Instruments on board will measure the speed and direction of those solar wind particles, a spectrometer will measure electrons, and a magnetometer will measure magnetic fields. Perhaps the most exciting instrument is NASA's Earth Polychromatic Imaging Camera, or EPIC. EPIC will image the entire Earth in a single picture, something that's never been done from a satellite. It hasn't been done since the Apollo 17 astronauts did it back in the early 70s. EPIC images in 10 very narrow wavelengths, which will reveal ozone, aerosol dust, volcanic ash, cloud heights, and even vegetative cover across the entire sun-like disk of the Earth at once. NASA, NOAA, and the Air Force are eager to get DSCOVR out there monitoring space weather. The mission dates back to the late 90s when it was originally scheduled to be placed in initial orbit by the ill-fated Space Shuttle Columbia mission STS-107. Then called Triana, the satellite was warehoused through 2 presidential administrations before it was removed from storage about 2008 to begin the long process of recertification for flight. This launch is also another opportunity for SpaceX to attempt to land its first stage of the Falcon 9 rocket on its drone ship. The last attempt was not successful, but it produced some spectacular video of the vehicle coming in hot at an angle before bursting into flame. SpaceX turned to sci-fi novels by Ian Banks to name the drone ship. Just read the directions. Good advice for us all.
Uh-oh, that's called dead air. Wow, he caught me off guard. Here we go.
When the weather ball is red, warmer weather is ahead. When the weather ball is white, colder weather is in sight. When the weather ball is green, no change in the weather is foreseen. When colors blink by night or day, precipitation's on the way.
I had dead air. I pride myself in no dead air on this show. Boy, that was horrible. I was sitting here fiddling around, and it just happens. But this is the Weather Roundup. This is for the 9th of February 2015, and obviously the biggest issue is centered up in the Northeast. John, you're closer to the action, and you got some action there with freezing rain and snow. But, man, Boston, these guys can't catch a break, can they?
Oh, it's one storm after another, as Jeff was saying. We're waving them as they go by, and they're catching New England right on the chin. I don't know how much snow they've had so far in Boston for the season, but I do know they broke a 7-day snow total. That record had been in place, I think, since the '96 storm. But as we look ahead, I've got the water vapor loop here across the U.S., and we're still, the trough is still upstream from us. So, Aubrey, we've still got some ugliness here this evening.
Mm-hmm. Wasn't Boston only at like 10 inches of snow by January or something?
Yeah, I think you're right. There wasn't much, and then
it wasn't. Yeah.
They got clobbered.
Yeah, and all of a sudden they're at like 312. What happened?
That's 312 meters too. That's not inches. But no, in of course the other story is this brutal cold coming in. We briefly talked about it earlier, but it sounds like did you, Aubrey and John? Did you say you guys are using highs in the teens?
Yeah. In fact, I've got a. Let me see if I can pull up for you here real quick. Am I still sharing this?
I think 19 might be balmy.
And the wind will be howling when this cold air comes in this weekend, and it almost looks like a true cross-polar flow.
I just saw a tweet with forecast wind chills. I think it's a Weather Bell graphic of -20s in my area, and I think it was like -30s or 40s up in the upstate New York, Pennsylvania area, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, so I'm sharing right now this is the GFS 850 temperature forecast valid for 12Z on Friday. And these numbers across central PA are in the minus 30 range. I mean, 26 to minus 30. This is obscene.
Brother.
And that's Friday?
Yeah, it's Friday morning.
And Sunday looks
buddy.
worse.
Yeah, there's another core of cold air that comes back behind us. So let me see if I'll move this ahead. And there you see the reds coming in.
Oh.
Yeah, that's
all the way down to Florida.
Oh, yeah. You wonder if this could be a crop issue down in Florida, you know.
Easily.
Hey, Jeff, what's it going to be like in your CWA with this cold air?
Well, you know, the first thing, James, is we got a little Alberta clipper to take care of there. And as John was just showing, that's going to develop pretty rapidly right off the coast there. And it looks like our friends in Boston are going to get another shot of pretty heavy snow coming up here Friday morning.
Right.
Here in New York, I can't remember the last time I've seen a wind chill warning that's probably going to be needed. I can't remember that any time in my career seeing that in New York area.
That is brutal. Wow.
Yeah.
And of course, what we should mention, you know, we tend to have an Eastern U.S. bias here, which sometimes our friends out west call us out on. Our friends in the western states have been downright warm. Did Denver hit 70 again today? I think it did.
I think we need to find someone to go vacation with.
Yeah.
We'll all get together and let's go.
You know, I do weather on radio in Arizona, and the last few days for Phoenix, I've been using mid-80s.
I can confirm that Denver hit 70 today for a high.
Wow.
At the Denver International Airport in Colorado.
And 83 in Phoenix.
Yeah,
There you
go. There you go. It
Who's got a
verifies.
house ready for some WeatherBrains?
And out, you know, way out west, they've had, you know, some heavy rain up in the, you know, Northern California, up in the Pacific Northwest. So it's been very interesting. But anyway, that's a quick little overview of what's happening. So Aubrey, no email because of
No, I'm locked out.
outage.
Yeah,
You're
I'm
locked
locked
out.
I had it set to print and it wouldn't let me back in. So
I'm going to blow the foghorn on Aubrey for the segment.
Yeah, I deserve it.
We had some good ones in there. We'll come back and do a double segment next week. We get some really cool emails. To me, the most exciting thing is watching John answer some of these guys.
When I don't get into my email on the weekend, and then when I get back on Monday and I have to sift through these things.
No, wait a minute. You're not having to sift through these things. These missives from Dr. Scala, that's gold. They got to turn this into a textbook.
It is.
This
and
is
it's
good stuff.
It's just like I feel like I need to pay him some money for answering. I mean, I would pay him some cash for these incredible answers he's giving. This is like you're paying a consultant here.
There you go. There you go.
Well, because I start with the most recent, and I go, I gotta find the original email. I gotta dig through and find the actual original email.
And let me say, if you do send us an email, we can't guarantee one of these remarkable answers, but there's a chance you might get one. So, you know, just send us one. It's email@weatherbrains.com, and we might answer you. But I think our pal Nate has a little news to discuss.
I feel like we need to start with a little history, and I'm surprised Bill didn't bring this up before he bailed on us. Today
Bill hung up on us.
Is the birthday of the predecessor of the National Weather Service.
That's right.
President Ulysses S. Grant on February 9th, 1870, signed into law a resolution passed by Congress to form within the U.S. Army Signal Services Division of Telegrams and Reports for the benefit of commerce what would eventually become the National Weather Service. So to you, all of you in the National Weather Service, we salute you. Happy birthday. Thank you for all that you do for us. Speaking of people doing things for us, a company called Spire wants to take our money and launch satellites, but not big satellites, little satellites, lots of them. Lots of little satellites. And not to take pictures, but to record weather data, temperature, pressure, that sort of thing. This is a new startup, new satellite data startup, and they want to be able to launch about 100 of these things. They're about the size of a shoebox, and they would collect 10,000 weather condition readings every day using a process called GPS radio occultation.
What?
Say that 3 times fast. Yeah, it's good stuff. I will send a link to James, get it posted. This is an article in Fast Company. Really interesting concept. It doesn't fix the issue for, we need pictures because we're visual. We like to have pictures, but this would address at least some of the needs for additional weather data from space. A little closer, but not quite to the surface, folks at the University of Alabama at Huntsville are testing UAVs, unmanned aerial vehicles, also known as, ladies and gentlemen, drones. And they're testing these to collect weather data as well. They're looking ahead toward what they call the future of 2031. A research group.
No. I heard they're using those drones to launch chemtrails.
No. Take your yeah, whatever. Anyway, they're talking about weather balloons are great. The problem is they're expensive. They're pretty much one use only. We get a 1 in 20 back. Yeah. I think the number is about 5%. So they can reuse the instrument packs if they come back to the National Weather Service. But the problem is 95% of them don't. So they're thinking about maybe using drones. You take a drone, you mount it with some weather gear, you fly it up, you collect some data, and fly it back down. Boom, you get to reuse the drone again. An hour later, 10 hours later, what have you. Interesting stuff happening at the University of Alabama Huntsville. Really interesting thing, though, FAA still not clear on what's legal in terms of drone use, especially when you start talking about commercial use. So that's something that's still...
Hey, do you think the Weather Service or broadcasters will have first crack at using a drone for severe weather coverage?
That's a good question, and I'll be honest with you, I don't know. It seems like on the one hand, you do have some movement on the commercial side. The FAA issued 8 more drone exemptions last week. And it's interesting, now there are enough of these now that we can start to look at what sorts of conditions the FAA is essentially requiring by which exemptions they are granting. Now, in a nutshell, if you want to use it for commercial purposes, you have to be willing to restrict yourself to a limited geographic area. You have to require that a licensed pilot, not necessarily a commercial pilot, but a licensed private pilot, be at the controls, and you have to have a dedicated observer in addition to the pilot and in addition to whoever may be operating the camera on this thing, who can't be the pilot, by the way. So you could wind up, like a television station, could wind up needing 3 people to do this. Now, I haven't seen any TV stations specifically get exemptions, but there are a couple of coalitions. CNN's involved with one based at Georgia Tech to try and do some research and whatnot. So it seems like there may be some clarity happening there, at least in some direction, but it's still far too muddy for a lot of folks' preference. So that's something that we'll be keeping an eye on. And finally tonight, this will be our kicker. This was sent... and I'm going to have to use the camera because it's on the other computer. This is the Mother Goose and Grimm cartoon, and the comment says, "Uh-oh, the weatherman said to expect a whiteout tonight." And there is the big hand of God with the big tube of whiteout. That's from Mike Peters from yesterday's comic in Mother Goose and Grimm. If you have any news items, and I appreciate Danny Lucas hooking us up with a couple of these this week. Appreciate those emails. If you have any news items, send them to us. Email at weatherbrains.com. Email at weatherbrains.com. You can also tweet them to me. I'm on the Twitter at NSJ. And with that, we'll turn the floor back over to you, Mr. Span, for Picks of the Week.
Yeah, let's do Picks of the Week. Let's start with the fog bank.
Initiating startup sequence.
Hello to WeatherBrains listeners. This is David Phillips, Skydiver on Twitter. My first pick comes from a tweet by Patton Oswalt. He's an actor and comedian. It's going to be one of those, oh, that guy actors when you see him. Sent out a decent tweet a week or so ago called about Snowmageddon. Come on, Twitter, we can do better than this. He had several funny hashtags, and many of the responses were pretty good. My favorite was Ragnarok Salt. 1 or 2 of them are not safe for work. Warn you about that. The link will be in the notes. Corey McCluskey of Fox 10 in Phoenix had a little bit of trouble with his green screen display during his forecast on January 27th, but he handled it pretty well. I think you'll like the video. The International Space Station science director had a story on the use of the rapid scatterometer aboard the International Space Station and its use during one of the recent northeastern storms. Capital Weather Gang had a great post about the forecast uncertainty for the storm of January 27th, about why the forecast was so bad for New York City and what ought to be done. New York Times also had a great article about that forecast. I'll close out with multiple rainbows in Alaska coming out of Earth Science Picture of the Day. Thanks for listening. Skydaver out.
Initiating shutdown sequence.
And Jeff will warn you, in about 5 minutes, we're going to come to you for a pick of the week, so be ready. But let's start with Aubrey and Bear with a pick of the week.
Yes, and Bear got some very good long walks this weekend with the nice weather. My pick of the week is NASA Goddard in Maryland. They, what's it called? It's a solarium where you can actually go in this exhibit, and it's like a 3D visualization of a solar flare. How cool is this? I'm so excited about this. I'm about to go to Maryland like tomorrow.
Cool. And again, all these picks will be up on the website. I will be ready to post the web notes by maybe 5 a.m. But no, they'll be there. So thank you. I love that site. That's a great pick. Let's go to Dr. John for his pick of the week.
Yeah, James, I'm going to go with a paper that was recently published in Geophysical Research Letters. And this is by a group of researchers at the University of Iowa. And what they were looking at was the April 27th, 2011 outbreak. And what they did was they looked at they used actually backward trajectories and looked at the transport of smoke particles from fires in Central America, and that the trajectories took these products from the fires right into where the thunderstorms were developing across Alabama and Mississippi on that fateful day. And what they're surmising, what they're proposing in their paper, is that the aerosols led to lowering of the cloud base. And you lower a cloud base in an environment that's already got a lot of shear, then you're enhancing the updraft velocity. So their contention is maybe these smoke particles are enhancing the severity of the storms.
Can you prove that with one case?
Precisely. No.
No, but look, it's interesting. You know, the easiest thing to do is to blow it off and, blow the buzzer. I think it's interesting, and I would love to see this in maybe 5 years after you get some more case studies. But I found it interesting. I think Greg Carbon kind of said the same thing. But yeah, we'll put a link to this up on the website, weatherbrains.com. Look at it, and you can decide for yourself. Let's go to Rick Smith for his pick of the week.
Well, we kind of alluded to it earlier, but the Weather Service is looking for comments on we're calling it a widget, but think of it more as a mobile-friendly web page. You're going to get the best bang for your buck out of this if you open the link on your mobile device. So if you got an iOS or Android or Samsung Galaxy or whatever you've got, this is a really nice page. And it's the closest thing you can get to an app from the Weather Service, because what you do, and there's different ways to do this on every phone, is you can bookmark this and put actual icon on your home screen of your phone, and you've got a one-click access to the Weather Service forecast and radar and satellite and warnings and hourly forecast and daily forecast. It's really good, and we're getting some really good reviews, and I had nothing at all to do with it, but some friends down at the regional headquarters and national headquarters have been working on this. So the link will be up, and I'd recommend you opening it on your mobile device and then bookmarking it or adding it to your home screen, however you do that. I think it's pretty cool stuff.
Rick, I think that thing looks great, but as I mentioned a few minutes ago, what is the discussion, if any, about people who, everybody knows how to get an app, but does everybody know how to do what you said and bookmark a page on their desktop on their phone?
Based on the questions we've answered on Twitter and Facebook, no. So it's a one-on-one education process right now. But yeah, people have no idea that you can do that, and you can do that with any website. You open this on your browser on your phone, and you can do that with anything. So that's the challenge.
Yeah, it's real easy on an iPhone. I mean, there's a button for it. It's just that nobody knows to look for it. So
it's a little bit more complicated on some of the other phones we found.
Yeah. Okay.
All right, Kev, while you're here, what's your pick of the week?
I put in pictures. You know, I love Boston, the Boston Globe, and they have the big picture, and so these are just wonderful pictures from the Boston and Northeast blizzard.
Yeah, that I don't know how they do that. That's amazing. Their stuff is just remarkable, and obviously, it is a winter wonderland. All right, Nate, what you got? What you got?
Send in the weathermen. This is probably the most interesting thing I've read on the internet all month. This is published by NBCNews.com. It's a long read, and it's worth every minute you will spend to read it. It's about special ops meteorologists, basically folks that go in before just about all of the other troops to collect weather data, and in some cases help generals make go, no-go decisions based on weather. This is fascinating stuff. I encourage you to read it.
Yeah, that's cool. Hey, can I? Well, I still am here. Can I ask Jeff real quick? I wanted to ask earlier, and I don't know if you guys covered it, but there's been some discussion, I guess, especially in New York and in Boston, and this isn't really your area, but snow removal. I mean, we're to the point. It's like, where do you put it? What goes on up there? Where do you put it?
You melt it. They got these huge snow melters that are taking care of the snow, and that's how they get it out of places like Times Square.
So that's really a thing. There are like, what, tens of these, hundreds of these things? I actually learned about these online just last week in researching it, but they're they're just big heaters, right?
Big heaters and melt the snow right down. And we had a snowstorm right before New Year's Eve many years ago, and they were able to clear out the entire Times Square in about 12 hours.
Wow. I think the number I saw was something like 350 tons per hour, but even that's a big job because you got to have some sort of earth moving or, you know, construction equipment to move it from place to place.
Global warming. Sorry. Global warming.
Too bad we don't have a pipeline to get all that down to Lake Kickapoo.
I've got to deal with a friend of mine who's in Maine, an old high school buddy, and she says she's going to meet me halfway in Tennessee with a hose if I can just get my hose here from the lake back up that direction.
Awesome. All right. Hey, Jeff, what we got a pick of the week for us? Your turn. Go.
Yeah, absolutely. Let me see if I can share my screen here. Here we go. Let's see if this works. Can you see that?
Magic. Yeah. Yes.
Well, there we have it. The current issue of the Bulletin of the American Meteorological Society has a snow globe on the front, and that's the National Weather Service in New York. And article was written by a good friend of mine, Joey Pica, and Dave Schultz, and several other folks from Stony Brook University on the value of dual-pole radar in diagnosing complex microphysical evolution of an intense snow band. That was a snowstorm of 2 years ago today that produced 30 inches of snow.
Wow.
Most amazing
cool.
snowstorm I've seen in my life.
You know, I think I get those electronically now only. I don't get the publication in the mail anymore, and I have not been timely in going to look at these, but I will do this tomorrow, so this will be something I'll want to see.
There's a great James article in last month's BAMS about the common clash of the air masses as the cause of tornadoes and tornadic thunderstorms. It's a really good read. They basically take that oversimplification and basically rip it to shreds. It's good.
Yeah.
Cool. Hey, and John Scala, one nosy question for you. I couldn't help in a screen share. You were showing those maps, and the website was tropicaltidbits.com. I'm nosy.
That's a great site. I'm telling you.
What is this? I've never heard of it.
Well, it's primarily for tropical weather, but their presentation. Let me put it back up here for you. The presentation of the model fields is fantastic. I've really become enamored with it. This is the one I go to all the time now.
Now, is this a subscription service or is it free?
No, it's free.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
And all the here, let me scan it down here. You can go to all the models. They've got the global models, the ensembles.
Ooh.
When the hurricanes are available, they got the Hurricane Wharf, and then the high resolution NAM. It's fantastic.
Wow. I wonder who puts this together. Goodness.
I don't know.
Have whoever's up with that, and then Ryan Maui on the same show, and let them go at it.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah, because I will admit that looks a lot like Ryan's maps on weather.
It does. I know it does.
Wow. All right. Well, that's interesting. But hey, we got to wrap this thing up here. We want to thank everybody for taking the time to listen. WeatherBrains is typically produced Monday nights at 9:30 Eastern, and there is a video version if you're listening. If you'd like to watch, you can watch it live at live.bigbrainsmedia.com or go back and find the YouTube replay, which is on weatherbrains.com. But we thank you for hanging around. Hey, if you want to get in touch with us, the email address, it is email@weatherbrains.com. All of our social media accounts are there as well. But and if you listen by iTunes, we love the iTunes comments as well. So thanks for your time. Thanks for your friendship. We appreciate you listening to the show. And on behalf of the entire WeatherBrains crew, I'm James Spann. Thank you for listening. Have a great week, and God bless. Hey, and Jeff, thank you. You are a great guest. Awesome. Good stuff.
Thanks, James.
Yes, very good.
Good talking with you guys again.
Thanks, everybody. Y'all have a good week. Bye.
Thanks, Rick.